world of investing in real estate is changing dramatically in British Columbia, specifically and certainly to a nth degree in Kelowna and the Okanagan Valley in general. And I'm joined today by some very astute property management, real property management with Trina and Aaron Piva. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So when we talk about what's going on in British Columbia, when we start to understand, when we look as investors at what goes on in property management, something I want to shine a light on right away, and whoever wants to take this, is that RPM has a very interesting, I think, concept or I guess focus in terms of property management. It's not really property management. I love what you flipped it to, and you call it asset management. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Because I absolutely love that thought process.
Sure. We definitely see, it is still property management. We're helping manage, investors' assets more than just the property itself. It is an asset. It is an investment. So we want to ensure that it's looked after properly. It's not just looking after the tenants. It's not just looking after, the landlord duties as a responsibility. It's ensuring that the whole property is taken care of correctly. The routine maintenance is done properly. Required maintenance is attended to as soon as possible. And we want to preserve and hopefully help increase that value of the asset for our clients.
Well, let's just pull on that thread a little bit more. When we talk about asset management, I think what you just brought up is really critical to that, which is maintaining the property, which is also creating relationship or maintaining relationship with our tenants or our clients, because really that's who they are in this context. One of the things that when we talk about asset management, we have to consider, we want that asset to be profitable. We want that return on our investment, not just a return of our investment. And that takes actual concerted effort and some focus. Now, one of the things that I've noticed over the years in the kind of the do-it-yourself property management world is that landlords have a tendency when they're self-managed to not want to do those little subtle rent increases, to not want to disrupt a good thing. And in doing that, you're leaving money on the table all of the time, from my experience and perspective. And when we talk about asset management, it also means profitability, making sure you're getting those rental increases in there when it's appropriate. What's your thoughts on that? Like, how do you view it as the asset managers, if you will?
Well, I think one of the things that we do differently, or why we consider it asset management, is we really look at, mitigating risk as well with the property. So, not only in maintenance issues, but also, putting in good tenants, and really doing our due diligence and not just putting in warm bodies with cash in hand, which is I think a lot of landlords fall into that trap. But doing our due diligence to really put in good tenants who appreciate having a good landlord, who want a higher level of experience from their property manager, their landlord. They appreciate our technology. They appreciate our communication. All of the little perks we have, we can help them build their credit scores if they pay their rent on time. We give them, really accurate accounting, great communication, et cetera, et cetera. So we make it so that tenants want to rent from us. It's a good experience. So when those rent increases come along, they're not so hard to negotiate, because they know the alternative of having a ambivalent landlord or a absentee landlord frustrates their living and their peaceful living. So they want to rent from us, and the rent increase isn't a big deal most of the time.
Well, I think there's another aspect of this that we don't want to step over, which is to say RPM is a national organization. You're getting feedback from other property managers right across the country. So you're getting insights in terms of techniques, back to what you talked about, technology and system. Your screening process, because of the tools that you have and the access you have, is very thorough compared to general do-it-yourself property management who goes online. Maybe they check some Facebook posts. Maybe, they really look into the background of who that tenant is, and are they attracting the right tenant profile even to begin with? So I don't want to step over, RPM as a trusted partner of the Real Estate Investment Network is there because of that national scope and your ability to deliver on what you say you're going to do. And also to, I think, maximize the return on investment. And when you look at the journey that RPM is on, and specifically within your franchise in Kelowna, you've built and expanded your team. You're really expanding into the Okanagan Valley, Penticton being one of your real big focuses right now, I would say, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Give us a little bit of insights into how you're expanding and what the thought process is behind that.
Yeah, I think, we have found definitely some success in the Kelowna Central area and Central Okanagan, even up into Vernon through Lake Country. We see Penticton as one of the fastest growing markets actually in the Okanagan Valley. It was generally perceived as sort of less expensive, more, you get more for your money down near Penticton. So we saw a lot of investors headed down there. And we're still seeing it because Kelowna did, obviously, it saw the bigger increases. And so it's tougher to get an investment and buy an investment and start in Kelowna now. So we're looking and we're seeing things spread out. So we are building our team. We're bringing in some, we recently hired some property managers to bring on. They'll be starting very shortly. One in particular is very focused and going to be focused on the west side all the way down to Penticton. It's something she's very interested in, and we're going to help her to join our team and work down in the Penticton area, hopefully all the way from West Kelowna, Summerland, Peachland, all the way down to Penticton. It is a great spot. We're seeing a lot of people investing down there. You get a little more for your money as an investor in that area, and the rents have increased dramatically even over the last few years. So
interesting. So so this is an interesting point that I love to make around property management overall, which is to say that if you're feeling like, well, I'm not, Penticton is in my backyard. I don't live there. I live in another city. I live in another province even. I mean, when you consider the fact that what's going on in British Columbia overall, I mean, it's getting painted with a pretty dark brush, if you will, given the changes that they've made to short-term rentals, for example, and some of the limitations that they put on rental increases and all the rest of it. But that's not to say that there isn't good investment opportunities that are out there. You have to look for them, but you also have to know what's going on in that market. So you talk about Penticton as an example. You're seeing some opportunities there, some opportunities, I'm assuming, for cash flow, but ultimately what having a great asset / property manager allows you to do is not to have to be in that particular city. So when we look at if somebody's looking to invest in Penticton, for example, and they're saying, okay, well, I need to find out what current rents are. Is that where you guys really can step up and communicate and say, here's the opportunity, here's what current rents are? Give me some insights into how out of province or not a city investor works with RPM.
Yeah, we love working with, I would say a lot of our clients are from definitely out of Kelowna or out of province or even country. Technology is an amazing thing. We can, the world is suddenly a smaller place when we're able to communicate the way we do. So we get a lot of people who contact us. They're looking to invest. They're wanting to know, obviously, where they can get the best bang for their buck. We have some great relationships with, different mortgage brokers and realtors throughout the Okanagan and all of BC, really, where we can find those opportunities and present them to prospective clients or existing clients. We do full rental analysis on all of our properties. We can really give the investor a real clear picture of what all the expenses are going to be over the short period, over the long period, projected revenue, all of it. Hoping that they can build their equity is the goal, and help them expand their portfolio ideally.
So is it fair to say, or is it unreasonable to think that if an investor was looking at a property in Penticton and they're finishing up their diligence, they're going, this looks really great, let me bounce this off of RPM, let me send you a pro forma, see what you think of it? Is that a service that you would provide to a potential client?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do it all the time, and we love doing those. So we love helping realtors sell investment properties, and that's how we help them. And then we love to help investors, really have informed decisions when they're making a purchase. So yeah, we love to give, and we're happy to give rental analysis for any client or prospective client as well.
So if anybody listening to this, I think this is so important to understand, is that, within our own kind of world that we teach and we coach individuals around when they're investing in real estate, is that you have to build your team. And wherever you are, because you're looking to put your capital to work, you're looking for, you're looking to put your money to work in a way that it works harder for you than you work for your money. Those are all little cliches, but they all have meaning. But ultimately, to put a team together and to build your team so that they can actually support you in making the right decisions and then supporting the decision that you make. So it's one thing to say, okay, let's do this, but how do we pull it off?
Yeah.
And so it's encouraging when you consider that, I don't know the area, but if I can reach out to somebody boots on the ground like you guys are, because you've been doing this a long time, Trina and Aaron, give us a little bit of your own background of how long you've been doing this and what your investment looks like, if anything, and give us some insights into what you're doing.
We've been in Kelowna with Real Property Management for going on 7 years. Our family backgrounds are all in a lot of real estate, buying properties, flipping properties, building properties, investing in properties.
Being landlord.
Yeah, we've done it all.
Yeah. Well, that's an important aspect of it, right? Because as an investor, I want to be able to, we can make the assumption that, the property management is an investor-focused property management, which all makes sense. But there's a relatedness that you have because of your own background as investors in doing what you do. So you understand the mentality, you understand the concerns, the risk mitigation side of it. Because with, I guess, the asset management part of it, you're also looking at risk mitigation. You're looking into the future a little bit and guiding your clients along the way. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, without question. I mean, like you said, when you're not on the ground, you may be an investor that's looking at different markets. You have to have somebody that you're going to trust and that can speak on your behalf, that can give you an honest opinion. I mean, you mentioned, we talk about boots on the ground. And a lot of times it is different than being, we see a lot of reports in the news for various rental rates, various vacancy rates. A lot of that information is quite delayed and inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
We will definitely be a little more honest with everybody and, realistic expectations so that there's no surprises when somebody's coming in. And not only that is, we can actually be and go check out a property and say, you might have to look at, if it's a little bit older property, you have to expect that you're going to put some more money into it. There's going to be more maintenance issues. Newer properties, you don't have the maintenance issue. You need a little more rent, but you're probably going to be paying a little bit more for those. So again, we can help them weigh pros and cons of different properties that people are looking at and what's expected, moving forward after they do purchase something or are looking at something and putting, tenants in place. What to expect, because that's especially new investors, we find that quite a bit. There's a lot of expenses they may not understand and may not expect, and we can help them navigate those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is interesting what you pointed out there, Aaron, which is to say that when you consider that reports that you're reading, number one, there's lag. They're older reports. It doesn't say, okay, well, how is this all unfolded? And I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. We're looking at a report that's a couple of weeks old. If somebody's talking to you, you're going, well, what time is it now? Like what's going on right now? Like what happened this morning? It's a totally different view of the world, if you will. I'd be curious, it was several months ago now that BC put in the changes to the Airbnb rules. And can you give me some insights into what is the effect of that been? What has the impact been in real kind of life? What is going on in Kelowna as an example, or whatever areas you want to talk about with that shift in the Airbnb? Has it been as difficult as it seems to have been, or the bad news was when they originally announced it?
I don't think that the results of the new legislation are what was hoped. I think what the government thought was going to happen was all of these short-term properties were going to transition into long-term, and it was going to really address this housing deficit that we were having in BC. We haven't seen that happen.
No.
We didn't expect it to happen. So we're not surprised with the results.
Yeah.
What it's done is it's frustrated a lot of people.
Mhm.
It's frustrated their lifestyle. It's frustrated their ability to generate revenue that they were relying on. It's frustrated their long-term wealth building and their planning with their family wealth building. And it's really affected the economy in the Okanagan as well as far as tourism go. We had the slowest year of tourism for a long time. And a lot of people are attributing that to the shortage of short-term rentals. So we're also seeing a lot of these people who had the short-term rentals holding on to them because they're kind of, what are we going to do? They don't want to put in a long-term renter. They're scared to put in a long-term renter, or it's a property that their family uses themselves. So there's so many different complexities to it. So we definitely are seeing the results. We're seeing a lot of properties on the market for sale. It definitely, I think a lot of people have said, I don't want a long-term tenant. All the nightmare stories you hear about BC residential legislation, tenancy laws. So there's a lot of opportunities right now for the investor if you're looking to buy, because there's a lot on the market. But definitely, it's definitely been affected here.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We can certainly go down the, criticism of government rather than sit down with people like yourselves, like literally putting an advisory board together of people who are in the trenches and at the effect of all of it and understanding what goes on in that market, rather they sit up from a whole different perspective with no experience and make these decisions. Here's what I anticipate though, and that is that this will reverse. So in other words, like so many things that government do, they make these decisions, they implement these things, it comes back to be the wrong choice, not getting the results that they thought it would. So the pendulum swung all the way over there, and then it's going to swing back. And I think that's where the opportunities can exist. Having said that, existing and current investors are strapped for cash and cash flow and all the things that go on with it. And it has that kind of negative fallout. So, I encourage investors, if you're listening to this, is to not be shut down around Kelowna and area, but actually reach out to individuals and organizations like Real Property Management, find out what's really going on and see where those opportunities are. Because like so many things, this too shall pass. The pendulum will swing the other way. They react and overreact. That's the nature of the beast. So we have to know that that's a normal cycle when it comes to government decisions. And generally they back off of those decisions because it doesn't serve them. And that usually doesn't serve them because their tax revenues drop. And when their tax revenues drop, they make changes. That's ultimately what happens.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of the investors, newer investors in Kelowna and the Okanagan, bought in when it was cash flow positive. They've only known being an investor in the Okanagan as being a positive cash flow positive investment. Yeah. So we're doing a lot of educating on, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We have that conversation a lot. The property cycles, how the economy works, all the things that you're so good at articulating, Patrick. These are the things we're trying to educate our clients on, because there's a lot of people who are nervous, right? And so having them take a breath and look big picture, not be so afraid or nervous, and assuring them that this will reverse. It will come around. We just need to be patient.
I think I want to, as we start to wind these things down, I want to, I'm going to ask you the question of what you want people to know about you and what you're doing right now as we sign off. But before I get there and ask you that question, I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. But I want to say this to some of any investors who are still watching this and are looking at what's happening in British Columbia, specifically Kelowna, Penticton, that whole area in general, is that when it comes to what's happening globally, when we look at the global macro, and you go, okay, Francie, where are you going with this? But ultimately, this is what's happening. We know that inflation is continuing. We know that the devaluation of our dollar is in fact happening. That just is the reality of it. That isn't anything but the truth in what the world is experiencing right now. we need to get our capital into a store of value, into hard assets. However you look at your portfolio, whether that be, maybe some stocks, some equities, some precious metals, some Bitcoins, some whatever, but ultimately real estate continues to be that store of value where we need to place our capital to stay ahead of the game. And I'll share this with you, Trina and Aaron, just only to give it some thought as you're talking to your clients. There's a fundamental understanding that the realization that our government looks into the camera and goes, we are committed to 2% inflation. We're committed to that. Now, we know that's not necessarily the truth. That may be their commitment, but it's always over 2%. But they've just looked you in the eye and they said it's 2% for sure. Now, when you start to look at real estate and you put a 2% inflation rate on that, we'll say that's 20% minimum over 10 years, plus whatever, if you extrapolate that, of course, and you realize it's more than 20%, that is like the government's almost, well, they promised you that it's going to be at least that increase. And if you look at leverage and if you look at the math, 2% inflation on absolutely zero cash flow, just appreciation or just a mortgage buy down and 2% inflation, that works out to about a 14% ROI with a 20% down payment on whatever you buy. So that's just some quick math. I want to shine a light on that because people overstep it. They're going, well, I'm kind of, was real estate? Well, if you got a 10-year plan, the government's right there. They're with you, by the way. And whatever story we continue to tell ourselves about the impending real estate bubble, I'm putting my money on the fact that real estate's going to continue to inflate. It's going to continue to go up, maybe not at the pace we think it should and blah, 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 but over the long term, it is going to do that. I know that's a little bit of a rant, but I want investors to understand that there is a method to all this madness and there is a thought process that goes on. And that is the reality of what Canada is all about, British Columbia is all about. And it's why we have real property management having and holding the space called asset management, not just property management. So anyways, I know I digress, but I think it's, hopefully it's a valuable thought process that we can share with investors. Now, as we wind this down, what do you want listeners to know about you or about RPM, about what's going on? What was the message that you would like to share?
Well, I think I'll talk on a bigger level, and you can talk more on a micro level. But on a bigger level, we're a national organization. We have offices all across Canada. We have a very strong network. I know we work with Rain on a lot of projects, and you know this, that we're very connected across the country. We share resources, information, data, strategies, processes, etc. And we are collectively all working together to really try to elevate the entire property management space in Canada. We see ourselves as being the leader in the information and the technology, and we think, collectively we're making a big difference in changing and redefining what property management is. We say we're much more than termites, tenants, and toilets. We're really trying to get into that asset management piece of it. So that makes us different than some of the smaller smaller property management companies that are, don't have that scale and resource that we do. We have so many mastermind meetings and collaborations. In a month, my calendar is full of opportunities where we're networking together and always trying to improve and grow and learn. So I think we, in turn, can give that to our client experience and to our tenant experience and pass on all this great stuff that we're learning that's going to help our clients ultimately.
Love it.
And on a micro level, hear us, our team.
Well, I think once you speak with our team and meet our team, Trina or myself directly, I think you'll get a good understanding of our knowledge of the local market and how we're always looking to educate yourself in the local market. We'll give you all the information you need to make an informed and educated decision, and you'll have the confidence in us that no one's going to look after your valuable asset better than real property management executives here in the Okanagan. So. We just always want to have a conversation with people. We feel that once we do, we attract the right type of clients to us, and the right type of clients are more than happy to work with us. And we find there's always a good we connect well with the valued investor, and that's really what we feel we always will provide to people investing in the Okanagan.
I love it. And, something I'll add to this as we wind things down for those listening, when we look at real property management, when we look at our own asset management or property management, however we look at it, we often look at it as an expense, as a cost. And while we get to benefit from that from accounting point of perspective, in terms of expensing that cost, the reality of it is the best return on your investment when it comes to looking after your property. And you have to consider the value of your time, the value of your expertise. I often say this to investors: unless you decide that you want or are going to be a full-time property management, you will not ever keep up with the changes that are happening, the rules, the regulations, the understanding of what's happening in a marketplace. This is an investment in your property, and that's how I hold property management. It's not just an investment in your property, it's an investment in your time and getting a return on your investment of your time. Aaron and Trina, thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate you. Appreciate Real Property Management. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks for having us.